Another week, another free program. This is my most successful program to date. The nuclear squat program is responsible for some of the biggest squat numbers at my gym. It also had huge carryover effect to my athletes' deadlift. So I wanted to make sure that this program was free for everyone to try. Now, a couple of questions and answers before we crack into the video. Firstly, where can I find the program? Link in the description. There's an app version, which is a paid variation of this. Looks a bit nicer for those guys who like the glamour and the specs. For the guys who don't really care, there's an Excel spreadsheet I've made up. It still looks clean and it's easy to navigate. Who is this program designed for? Someone who struggles with their squat and wants to spend a bit more time on it. Probably roughly an intermediate level athlete would be ideal, but if you feel confident enough to grab a barbell and you have an understanding of some of these movements, anyone is welcome to give it a try. This is a 3-day-a-week, 8-week program to help boost your squat numbers. Let's crack into the meat and gravy. First thing we're going to cover is movements and what you should expect to see in the program. Now, this runs over 3 sessions, as I mentioned in the beginning. We've got our main squatting session on day 1. We have our accessory squatting and deadlifting session on day 2. And then day 3, we're looking at barbell walkouts, so posture and positioning, as well as some explosive power movements to finish off that session. So session 1, we're going to begin with the main movement. It's going to be back squats, of course. How are we looking at performing back squats in this session? We're looking at going of a bit of a hex style format. Alex Bromley, he's the one that gave me the idea for the hex format. I've adjusted it slightly after some testing and adjusting with the program myself to make this the most optimal possible for the biggest lifts you can possibly manage and reducing overall fatigue. This is going to be a 1x3, 2x6, 1x9 AMRAP, and that's going to run for the first 4 weeks of the program. The squats themselves will then progress from week 5 to 8 by going 1x1, 2x3, 1x6 AMRAP, all the way to week 8, which is where we're looking at building for our 1 rep max. A couple bit of guidelines on that I'll cover in a moment, but let's cover back into the secondary movement. It's going to be a lunge variation. I think week 1 to 4 begins with a barbell back rack Bulgarian split squat with a front foot elevation. The front foot elevation is a personal bias for me just to allow us to find a more comfortable position. I'm not actually looking for extra range of motion in that particular movement. So if it doesn't feel comfortable for you, you can always just get rid of the front foot elevation and keep it as a barbell back rack Bulgarian split squat instead. From week 1 to 4, that'll progress on to just regular split squats from week 5 to 8. We don't really care about the rep schemes of some of our movements. It's just our main lifts that I want to cover. But I'm also just letting you know what the accessories are and why they're there. The lunge variation I like because I generally find people generally have some unilateral imbalances from left to right leg. The lunges will help address that massively. The first 4 weeks is for instability. The second 4 weeks is for power and strength. Our accessories, on the odd weeks, we're going to have Russian swings. On the even weeks, we're going to look at having hip extensions. So some hip extension work on both of those movements. Russian swings, obviously a bit of a lighter variation of this. And I think in the program, I do implement some banded work for the guys who just get too strong. And if they like max out on their heaviest kettlebell in the gym, we can add a big thick band to make things a little bit more challenging. Hip extensions, one of my personal favorite. I like them. Great hip extension exercise, good for building hamstrings and glute strength. Hamstring curls will be on the odd weeks, but there'll be nothing on the even weeks. So it's only 3 movements on those even weeks. So we'll do some seated hamstring curls throughout the program just to build some more hamstring strength on that first day of the week. From there, we're going to move into our second day, which is going to start with deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts. So there's going to be an alternating fashion. Odd weeks, we're going to do regular deadlifts. Even weeks, we're going to do Romanian, and let's look at the progression for that. Week 1, we're looking at 5 sets of 4 at 75%. This will be one of 2 only percentage work in the entire program. I love looking at an RPE-based style program because it allows the lifter to play it by ear on how they feel for the day. Percentages are very effective, of course, for enforcing intensity, but a lot of the people that I deal with are, everyday gym goers and just regular guys who, work, a stressful job or work a labor job. They might not feel the best on the day to perform to a percentage at every point. So that's when the RPE can become useful. But for the deadlifts, because I want to set a standard for the intensity to make sure we don't go too off proportion on the deadlifts, I've made sure that it is conservative for the particular reps we're looking at hitting. So we're going to start with 5 sets of 4 on our deadlift on week 1. We'll then obviously go to week 3, which is 4 sets of 3 at 80%. Week 5 is 3 sets of 2 at 85%. Before we finish on week 7, 2 by 1 at 90% to finish off those deadlifts. Remaining deadlifts, obviously on the even weeks, will be 2 sets of 10, RP8, 3 sets of 10 with the same intensity, 4 sets of 10 on week 6, and then week 8 is a deload week, which will be going back to 2 sets of 10 at RPE5. So pretty simple format for the deadlifts. Fun fact, when I was doing this program, I think I did some phenomenal stuff on day 3, which I'll explain in just a moment. But my actual biggest PR was my deadlift. I remember at the time I went from a 245 to a 252.5 kilo deadlift in the space of the 8 weeks, which was fantastic considering deadlifting wasn't the priority. So my leg strength obviously improved throughout that program, which had a massive carryover. Sebastian Orleb used to always say, your deadlift builds your squat and vice versa, which is why they're both great lifts to have complementing each other. Accessory deadlifts is good for squatting sessions. Accessory squatting is good for deadlifting sessions. But let's not get carried away too much. We've got our accessory work. We have some tempo squats from week 1 to 4. These are very light. I think they start at 50%. They have no belt, shoes, or knee sleeves, focusing on purely technique and positioning. This is just more of a technical component. Week 5 to 8, we get to do some front squats on that day 2, which we'll be looking at pushing the weight a little bit. Still, I think it's like 3 sets of 5. It's not high volume, just looking at building some quad strength and a bit more of a vertical torso position. We have leg press and leg extensions to finish off the actual program itself. Pretty self-explanatory, just putting some more leg strength. And then on the even weeks, instead of leg extensions, you have barbell box step-ups, but more of a deeper range of motion for the glutes to work for, looking at working on more knee extension, just in a different format to leg extensions in general. Cool, let's cover day 3. So day 3, we have 2 things we're tracking here. We're tracking the barbell walkouts and we're tracking the pause back squats. Now, this is my favorite session of the entire program. How I wrote this session, I don't even know, but there's some crazy crap in this session. And I used to look forward to this one every week because this was honestly the meat and gravy. Even though you're lifting big weights in our back squats, bit of a fun fact, I got to the week 4, I believe, here it is, week 4, 1 by 3 RPE10. I was able to hit 213 for 4 reps. I went over, I just went AMRAPed it for whatever reason. And then I did my back off set of 6 at 200 to this day. That is the most volume I've ever pushed out in a set. And I wasn't even wearing knee sleeves for it. So wild shit was happening there. But this day, for whatever reason, it just felt so fucking good. And I don't mean to swear, but oh my God, it was fantastic. We start with barbell walkouts, looking at some progressive overload work. With the barbell walkouts, we're just trying to prime the CNS for some heavy pause back squats to come. That seemed to work and complement nicely the pause back squats that you did. Every rep just felt very light. So that's what I liked about it. We start with 2 sets of 10 seconds. Week 1 is 100%, and then it just progresses by 5% increments on the second set. So week 1 ends up staying 100% for the first 4 weeks. It goes 105% for week 5 and 6, and then it drops back to 1 set on week 7. But the other way, where we're looking at the second set, it goes from 105 all the way up to 130%. But there's that range there, because if you're squatting 250 kilos, I'm not going to expect you to do a 400 kilo walkout. Obviously, we're going to make it comparative to the amount you can squat. So you might even stick to those lower rep ranges all the way to that final week. So still hitting 105% walkouts for 2 sets. It's just going to have a great benefit on your CNS. And I find a lot of people who squat heavy and haven't done a lot of overload work generally struggle with the walkout of the squat, and it almost talks them out of squatting even heavier. The pause back squat, the big caveat to this one is there's no belt. So this is working on bracing mechanics and positioning under a huge load, but also without the assistance of the belt. For some people, this will be a massive challenge. For me, and to this day, for whatever reason, I actually find squatting pretty easy without a belt. That being said, if I was to do something like a 9+ set, obviously a belt would be so much better. I feel way more fatigued with the amount and how hard I brace without a belt. But for whatever reason, the pause back squats felt absolutely crisp without that belt. So this one, we've got our first couple of weeks. So our first 2 weeks, we're going to do our 3s. So 1 set of 3 at RPE 6, 7, and 8. Week 2 is 1 set of 3 at RPE 7, 8, and 9. And then we look at progressing the reps down to 2, resetting the RPE back to the 6 to start, and then we go for that progression again. Week 3, RPE 6, 7, and 8 for 2 reps, RPE 7, 8, and 9 for 2 reps, and then we progress down to the ones for the final stretch, pushing towards the end. We've got week 5, week 6, and week 7. We're going to progress all the way to a RPE 10 pause back squat. So a single at the absolute heaviest weight you can. Before week 8, we don't perform any pause back squats whatsoever. For me, I hit my lifetime pause back squat PR with no belt, no knee sleeves. I don't even remember if I was wearing shoes. I think I was wearing shoes, but no belt or knee sleeves. I was able to hit 220 kilos in that pocket. It was fantastic. Like I said, this session is so much fun, and there's more fun still to be had. We've got on our accessory list for the first 4 weeks, we hit our seated box jumps, looking at building some explosive power from a seated position. Now, these have been a bit up in the air in that powerlifting community of whether doing explosive power work is actually beneficial for your squat. I don't have all the science on it. For me personally, I felt like this was just an easier way at body weight to help produce a little bit more force, and it was a bit of fun too. So it seemed to go well, having that as an accessory. It was easy to do after that heavy explosive back squat work and the walkouts, and didn't beat you up too bad. From there, the auxiliary work on the odd weeks, we've got some sled drags. On the even weeks, we've got some sandbag cleans. And at week 4, the sled drags disappear and it trades it out for some leg press calf raises. Sandbag cleans, I did these as heavy as I could, 3 sets of 2, 3, and 4 over the fortnight rotation that they came up. These were tough, but it was great for building erector strength as well as a bit of core stability. Holding that huge bag and navigating it to our shoulder is definitely challenging. So if you don't have access to sandbags, you can look at just a conventional barbell power clean instead as an alternative, a bit of an alternative lift to the deadlift if you need to as well. But that is the premise of the program. The goal is to build maximal strength in the squat. And if you know someone who has a weak squat and is looking at trying to get over a plateau, recommend them this program. Otherwise, check it out in the link in the description. If you want to give it a go, please leave a comment of any questions from this video. I'll try and answer all of them as I can. But I'll catch you on next week for another free program. See you then.